You need to stop watching porn. If you want better relationships, you want a greater sense of intimacy, and you want to get rid of a sense of guilt and shame, and you don't want to indirectly support sex trafficking, then this video is for you. Not everyone thinks that you should stop watching porn, not everyone thinks it's a big issue, but I guarantee you it's doing more harm than good. If you're not interested, scroll on, but if you want to get some tips on how to get free, then this video is for you. My name is Julian, this is the Lifecraft Co channel. My hot hairstyle. Let me know how your lockdown hairstyle is going in the comments. Let's jump into it. The stats in 2019, let's do that quickly. 115 million visits to one website in a day. The US, Japan, and the UK are the overwhelming majority subscribers to pornography. 55% of UK 18 to 25 say that pornography does not demonstrate consensual or loving relationships. These are true stats, true opinions, and they go up every year. But the question you've got to ask, is that a problem? I'm not the first person to make the argument that you need to stop watching porn. There's loads out there. Terry Crews is probably the most notable for the harm that it does to your relationships and it does to you, but also indirectly what it does to other people. Some people would claim that porn's not a problem, it's a person's choice. There's no harm in it, no one's getting hurt. However, if you dig a bit deeper and you go into the frequency of comments, for instance, some searches on YouTube, there's phrases like, I need help, I can't stop, I've had enough of this, I can't help myself. And that's the majority of comments. 3 out of every 5 comments are asking for help and asking for support. You've probably stumbled across this video because you're in a similar place. You want to know how to get rid of this stuff, how to make sure that you don't fall into the same traps. The first way in which it's doing harm to you is in an emotional sense. What you don't realize is that every time you consume porn, you engage in something that is mechanical and is without a sense of intimacy. And what it does, it breaks down your understanding of love, it breaks down your understanding of what relationship is. You might just say, well, it's just a physical act, it's not a problem. But actually, when you take an act that should be intimate and should be personal and you degrade it and make it something that's just for consumption, what you do is reject a model of intimacy. This distorts your perception of love. In fact, the word pornography in the Greek comes from porneo, graphio. Porneo means the prostitution of, graphio is the image. And another interpretation could be it's the prostitution of the imagination. What we do when we look at pornography is we allow it to distort our imagination. We allow it to distort our perception of what is pure and what is wholesome. When you say, well, is that really such a big issue? Well, I guarantee you it has long-term negative impacts on your emotional view in relationships. Not only that, it reduces your ability to connect with other human beings, not just of the opposite sex, but even in friendships, even in your personal relationships, that you find intimacy a lot harder. I'm sure if you're somebody who's been looking at porn for a long time, you'll know this to be true if you search your emotions, and it takes a lot of self-awareness to face up to those things. So actually, if you're looking for better romantic relationships, the first thing you can do is give up porn. The other negative effect of porn consumption, and the reason why you should give up watching porn, is that it has a physiological effect. It affects your body, it affects your physicality. There's an overwhelming amount of data that shows that it affects your motivation, it can even increasing aggression. It gives you a false perception of what a true loving relationship looks like, and that can have a knock-on effect in the long term in how you are with a member of the opposite sex. And because of the combined psychological effect, it means that you're less interested in a physical sexual relationship. And if and when you find that person who is the love of your life, you end up getting married, you bring all of that into your marriage relationship. There's a myth that some people think when you get married that these problems go away, that this is no longer an issue. No, what happens is you carry those things with you. It's better to deal with it now rather than put it off for it to be a future problem. The other aspect you may not have thought of is that it's like sleeping around but in your imagination. And you'd ask, well, is that actually an issue? Is that harming anybody? But actually it's harming you. It's almost like when you join two people together, they stick like glue, and when you rip them apart, it's hard for pieces not to come off. It's hard for you not to tear at the fabric of your emotions, of your very being. That's in a physical sense, but now imagine doing that emotionally on a regular basis. That happens when you watch porn, and that's one of the reasons why you need to stop watching it. What you do with your thoughts determines your actions. In other words, how you think and then the way you think might determine, and probably will determine, the course that your life takes, and certainly your value systems, your belief systems, and how you view other people. Pornography plays a role in that. If you consume lots of porn, what you find is it affects the way that you think about the member of the opposite sex. It affects the way you think about relationships. You might not think it does, but as you dig deeper and you take that bravery step of self-awareness and sit with yourself, you'll realize it has a greater impact on you than you initially thought it did. The pornography industry is the only industry that thrives off dissatisfaction. Every time you are dissatisfied, you return to go through the same process again, and what you aren't finding is intimacy, you're finding mechanical emptiness. The other reason is that for me it has to do with my moral fiber and my character. Think of it this way, that when you watch pornography or you consume pornography, that's somebody's sister, that's somebody's daughter, potentially that's somebody's mother. And I don't know if you've got women in your life, but when you start to think about it in those terms, you realize that actually this is not just harmful to me, but harmful to the other person. Now, on the flip argument, you might say, well, aren't these people choosing to engage in that? But all you've got to do is open your eyes to the news, open your eyes to some of the investigations that have gone on around the world, and you'll see that there's a high level amount of trafficking and a high level of prostitution, and not consensual, something that people have not chosen to go into but are forced to through circumstance. Now, when we consume porn, we are essentially the demand for that industry. So the supply increases, and when the supply, there is a demand, and when there's demand, there is a supply, and we indirectly contribute to that. There is a number of trafficking rings, there is a number of people who are in dire circumstances that do these things but do not want to do these things, as it's a way of getting money. And when we consume porn, we indirectly feed that and source that. If you don't believe me, you can check out organisations like A21 or Hope for Justice, where you hear stories of people that have been in these situations that have found themselves appearing in films because their captor or their trafficker forced them to, or they were paid to and did not want to. And when we engage in pornography, it might even look like those people are there willingly, but I tell you, there's a huge portion of them that are not. In fact, authorities have even used video footage to find hotel rooms and to find rings of traffickers in order to capture them. And so when you start to take a look at the evidence, it stacks up and it overwhelms that actually this isn't just harmful to me emotionally and physiologically, psychologically, but it's also harmful to other people. It expands an industry that is all about corruption, all about oppression, and all about taking away people's freedom and thriving off dissatisfaction. It becomes this vicious trap. The two top tools I can give you is the eyes and the mind. Starve the eyes, because the eyes feed the mind. The first thing you can do is stop looking at porn. It might seem really simple, but actually you need to make sure that you've got some barriers and guards around you. Statistically speaking, between 9 p.m. and 1 a.m. is prime time for pornography consumption. Those times are weak points for you. You've got to find barriers. You've got to find blocks in front of yourself so that you are delayed from engaging in these acts. One might be to leave your phone downstairs or in another room when you're going to bed. It might be that if you've got a partner, you make them aware that you're trying to put barriers and safeguards around this. It might be that you create some accountability, give somebody else the password to your phone, maybe even download some accountability software. There's a number of resources out there you can use, and I'll drop a link in the description for them. But start to put barriers, make it difficult for you to engage with this material. Another way that you can put a barrier around your eyes is that you can bounce them, and every time you see an image or every time you know there's an image coming up, look away. Find a way to turn your head. If you read something like a newspaper that has like the page 3 images or the sports images, if you know it's there, start reading from the back. Normally the boring sports sections and finance sections are at the back of a newspaper, and when you know the front, don't even look at it and engage in it. Stop feeding the monster of pornography. There's a great biblical verse that helps me in the story of Job, where he says that I have made a covenant with my eyes not to look at a woman lustfully. In other words, I have agreed with myself and I have determined with myself I won't engage in looking at somebody else, with lustful eyes that isn't my wife. So the eyes feed the mind. The second thing is take control of your mind. Take captive your thoughts. In the Bible it says take captive or take hold of every thought that is impure. And this is what you want to do when a thought enters your head. When an idea to pursue something like pornography enters your head, you need to take it and control it. Often when we try to stop thinking about things, we think about them even more. But actually we can start speaking out and say, I'm not somebody who looks at porn. I'm not somebody who consumes this. I'm not somebody who contributes to this problem. I won't do those things. Convince yourself that that's not who you are. If you found somebody you've got a bit of trust in and you can be accountable to, tell them that this thought has come into my head and I'm taking it captive and I don't want it to take hold of me. As you do this, what you'll find mind is your body starts to fight back. Your eyes feed the mind, and when your eyes are starving the mind of that imagination, then your mind starts to pull back thoughts even deeper, stuff that you've looked at from years ago. And again, when it comes into your head, you've got to take it captive, put a hold on it, and put it to death. If you do that, you can win this battle of pornography. Become somebody that habitually does not look at porn, habitually rejects pornography, habitually no longer contributes to the problem of trafficking and pornography consumption. I don't know a guy who's a teenager beyond who hasn't struggled or come across this problem or isn't about to. And if you think that this isn't an issue for you, it so easily could be. And if you decide right now to be the kind of person that doesn't consume porn, that doesn't look at this kind of stuff, then you'll set yourself up for success. You'll have better relationships, you'll have a better handle on your own emotions, you'll have a greater sense of intimacy, and above all, you'll be helping fight an industry that ultimately is built upon oppression. If you want more tips on how to live on purpose, we'd love you to like and subscribe. My name's Julian. Ciao. And blah, 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 blah. Words, spit them out.